It shouldn't be surprising that a man who had never seen a jungle in his life had a hard time convincing art critics when he started painting jungle scenes. Unlike Pablo Picasso, who could draw before he could walk at the age of 2, he only started painting regularly in his early 40s. Most of the artists I cover in my videos are artistic prodigies from birth, but this certainly can't be said about the French painter Henri Rousseau. Despite the obstacles he faced, something remarkable happened which turned this painter into an overnight celebrity. It was Pablo Picasso and several other world-famous modernists who discovered this self-taught painter. During the brief period of his success, one of his jungle paintings likely inspired the name of an influential early 20th century art movement as well. In this video, you'll discover exactly how Henri Rousseau went from being ridiculed to being considered a genius by a group of young artists who admired him. The French painter was born on May 21, 1844, in Laval, a relatively small city in the western part of France. After his father died in 1868, he moved to Paris and made a career for himself as a customs officer. His job was to collect taxes on goods that were entering Paris during the 19th century. Because of his job, he was later nicknamed Le Douanier, which translates to the customs officer. Although Le Douanier liked to draw as a child, he never really picked up his childhood hobby until he was in his early 40s. What's admirable about Henri Rousseau is that he was completely self-taught, which wasn't unique, but still remarkable at the time. His paintings obviously weren't suited for the prestigious Paris Salon, but there were other venues that he could submit his work to. Starting in 1886, his paintings were displayed regularly at the Salon des Indépendants, or the Society of Independent Artists. It was only decades later that one of his paintings inspired the name of an art movement at this event, but more about this interesting notion later on in this video. First, I want to enlighten you about the remarkable jungle paintings that Rousseau is best known for. Some of these are titled Tiger in a Tropical Storm and The Hungry Lion Throws Itself on the Antelope. If you look closely at how Rousseau painted these wild animals, it becomes clear why children's books were his main source of inspiration. So how did the man who never left France paint exotic plants? In order to do so, he never even left Paris. His inspiration came from frequent visits to the Jardin des Plantes, the huge botanical garden complex in the French capital. The Gallery of Zoology was inaugurated in 1889, and the accompanying Gallery of Botany a decade later in 1899. Henri Rousseau once mentioned that entering these buildings felt like entering a dream to him. This makes it very fascinating that he titled the final painting he worked on The Dream, which can easily be described as the epitome of his unique style. Not everybody appreciated his work though, especially when he first started exhibiting his paintings during the 1880s. Art critics used the words naive art to describe his paintings, and often compared them to those made by children. When you think of it, naive is a word that perfectly fits with the mindset of Henri Rousseau at the time. Despite being ridiculed, his main aim was to be recognized by academic art critics, something that was never going to happen. He once claimed that he invented a new type of portrait painting, which also included the landscape. As you surely expected, the portrait landscape he invented never really took off. He opened a studio in 1889 in Montmartre, Paris, the art district of the city where many world-famous artists lived and worked. He spent the final 2 decades of his life painting, and because he was never really successful, he lived in poverty most of the time. By the turn of the century, the French painter was in his mid-50s, and that's when things really started to change in the world of art. Impressionism marked the first shift away from academic art, and post-impressionism opened the door for a whole new generation of artists to emerge. Some of these were Henri Matisse and André Derain, who started experimenting with unnatural colors in the early 20th century. Soon, people who visited the annual exhibition of the independent artists had to wear sunglasses to cope with the bright and vivid colors featured in their paintings. Henri Rousseau was not influenced by them, nor was he part of this group, but his paintings were still exhibited at the event. That's when something intriguing happened, and how by some quirk of fate, one of his paintings inspired the name of an art movement. His work titled The Hungry Lion Throws Itself on the Antelope was exhibited right next to the colorful paintings of Henri Matisse and his friends in 1905. As usual, Rousseau's paintings were largely ignored, but his lion inspired an art critic to use the word fauve, which translates to wild beasts. Since that moment, the early 20th century modern art movement has been known as Fauvism. Although Henri Rousseau was not part of the Fauvist art movement, his work was still admired by a small but fast-growing group of modern artists. One of these was Pablo Picasso, arguably one of the best-known and most successful artists in history. Just like Rousseau, Picasso was still struggling to make a name for himself in the early 1900s, despite the incredible amount of talent he was blessed with. This translated to Picasso's Blue period, in which he produced dark and gloomy paintings. The suicide of his close friend Carles Casagemas ignited this dark period. Picasso visited Paris frequently during the first years of the 20th century and lived and worked in Montmartre for extended periods of time. It's there that he first came across a painting by Henri Rousseau. Remarkably, it was being sold as a canvas to be painted over in the Parisian streets. Unlike the street seller, Pablo Picasso instantly admired the unique technique of the artist who painted this work. Not only did he become a fan, he also acquired several of his paintings during the final years of Rousseau's life. Picasso kept both Rousseau's self-portrait with a lamp and a very similar portrait of the French painter's wife throughout his life. Because of this, you can now admire these paintings at the Musée Picasso in the Marais district in the heart of Paris. The highlight of Rousseau's career happened in 1908 when Pablo Picasso threw a party in his honor titled Le Banquet Rousseau. Among Picasso and his idol, the guests were other notable artists such as Juan Gris and John Metzinger, as well as American art collectors Leo and Gertrude Stein. I'm pretty sure that Rousseau felt that very moment that his decades of struggling as an artist finally paid off. To conclude, I think that the story of Henri Rousseau is both fascinating and tragic. It's fascinating because he continued to pursue his dream of becoming a painter, even though he was ridiculed throughout his career. Secondly, the fact that he only picked up his brushes in his early 40s and didn't get any formal training is quite stunning. The tragic part of the story is that Rousseau was simply born a couple of decades too early. He died in 1910 at the age of 66, which was just a few years after his paintings started gaining attention from modern artists. Despite this tragic element, he became highly influential for future generations and his distinctive paintings are still being displayed all around the world today. Many modern artists admired him, especially Pablo Picasso, who remained one of his greatest fans for the rest of his life.